"Don't you dare pretend you didn't know what you were doing," my mother yelled into the phone, her voice so loud I had to keep it out of my ear. "We're family. You can't just abandon us because your feelings got hurt." After a text exposed their lies, I cut them off, took back $220,000, and reclaimed my life. For years, they used me like an ATM. My brother Kevin sent a simple text message to our family group chat by mistake instead of sharing the secret one, and it caused everything I thought I knew about my family to suddenly fall apart in front of my eyes. I sat in my home office, staring at the April rain hitting the windows of my Burlington townhouse, feeling a strange mix of numbness and rage. Until yesterday, I believed that I was just being a good daughter by helping my parents with their retirement expenses. I had started a profitable marketing consulting business from scratch after college, and when it really took off 5 years ago, I started sending my parents extra money every month. My name is Jordan Wright, and I am 35 years old, financial, and I wanted to ensure that they could enjoy their retirement without having to worry about basic expenses. However, I was unaware of how they truly perceived me. The Gent family ATM just sent an additional $3,000, my brother texted, and my dad replied, "FA, keep that gravy train running. She's too naive to realize that we're using her, so I just bought those golf." The screenshots continued to appear, showing years of conversations about how to manipulate me, play on my sympathies, and extract more money. As I scrolled through message after message, Kevin tried to quickly delete them, but it was too late. I had already seen everything. Clubs your father wanted Jordan to flip if she knew her money was going to those instead of Medica. For the past day, my phone had been exploding with texts and calls from my family. My dad insisted they were joking around, and my mom said I was taking things out of their wallets. Years of them laughing at my generosity, planning lavish vacations, upgrading their cars, and telling me they couldn't afford their medications. Context: Kevin said he was just complying to keep our parents happy, but their own words had revealed the unpleasant reality. The rain outside grew heavier, equaling the storm inside of me. For years, I had been providing for their comfortable retirement, believing I was helping them survive, while they had been enjoying themselves and laughing at how easily they could. Kevin was standing on my porch, soaking wet, his face begging, and I felt my jaw tighten. I wasn't prepared for this conversation, but perhaps it was time to hear what he had to say. It was a betrayal that went deeper than I could have imagined. I crossed to the door, still holding my phone, and looked through the peephole. I opened the door but blocked the entrance because I had something to say as well. "What do you want?" Kevin looked miserable, with rain streaming down his hair. "Jordan, please let me in so I can explain everything and why you've all been laughing at me for years." I held up my phone, and the screen still displayed one of his texts, which stated that Jordan needed dental surgery because it wasn't what it seemed. The words came out harsher than I had intended, but I couldn't stop myself. "It seems like Kevin begged," his voice cracking. "Mom and Dad started it, and I just went along with it. So you were just following orders like some kind of financial Nazi." "I've been sending $3,000 every month, Kevin, which is $36,000 a year, for 5 years. Do you know what that adds up to?" Kevin looked down. "Lotfin $180,000, Kevin, and that doesn't include the additional money for Mom's broken furnace or Dad's alleged medical bills last winter." I felt sick when I said that, recalling how I had foregone a vacation to send them an additional $5,000 for a furnace that, apparently, never needed to be replaced. I know they went too far, but they're getting older and they're not 95, but Dad is still playing golf every weekend with his expensive new clubs that I bought because I thought he needed medicine. I was yelling, "Please, Jordan," not caring if the neighbors heard, because they're freaking out over his heart medication. I laughed bitterly at the idea of fake medication or the actual medication he needs, which I've been paying for while you all blow. When I told them they were having trouble paying the rent on their small apartment, I felt a strange calm descend upon me. I know that I messed up and Kevin's face crumpled when I spent the money on luxury items, but they truly need your help now that they've gotten used to the lifestyle and can't afford their mortgage without your bonus mortgage on the lakeside condo they bought last year. After Kevin left, I sank into my couch, my whole body shaking, and the screenshots from their group chat replayed in my head. In one, my father had written, "Just told Jordan the roof is leaking out, let's see how much we can squeeze out of her this time. I think you should leave, Jordan, please. I've been in Jordan for too long." As a joke, I took out my laptop and logged into my banking portal every month for the past 5 years, and there, I saw that $3,000 had been transferred to my parents' joint account plus all the dot. She's such a sucker for helping family, and I almost feel bad about it. Kevin then expressed concern, and we should start a betting pool on how quickly she sends the money. Emergencies, an additional $40,000 over the years, dental work that never occurred, auto repairs for issues that never existed, medical bills for treatments they never received. And what I had given up, I had put off purchasing my own house for 2 years in order to assist them with their alleged mortgage issues. I had put in 60-hour work weeks to support both their and my lives, missed vacations, and purchased used goods. I opened another tab and logged into the investment account I had set up for them 3 years prior, my covert plan to surprise them with a supplemental retirement fund when they turned 70. I had cut corners on my own life and furniture to make sure they were comfortable for what, so they could laugh at me and buy golf clubs and go on cruises while I worried about whether they were eating properly. I've been making $1,000 a month, and the balance was just over $42,000. My finger was hovering over the close account button, but I needed some perspective, so I called my best friend Megan, who was also my lawyer, and she practically screamed when I told her what was going on. I know I said it in a hollow voice, and I've been a fool. I know, Jordan, you've been nice. They should be ashamed. Her voice grew softer. What do you want to do? A part of me wants to cut them off entirely, but another part of me wants to confront them and listen to their attempts to defend themselves. Before you take any action, we need to review what you have legally set up for them. Are they on any of your accounts, insurance policies, retirement supplements, or anything else? Said I was cold because I hadn't even considered how we were financially intertwined beyond the monthly transfers and the investment account. 2 years prior, I had added them as dependents to my premium health insurance policy, and my father's heart medication, which I now doubt even exists, was covered by my plan. They were also beneficiaries on my life insurance policy, and I have to untangle everything one step at a time. Megan advised me to do this by first gathering all the documentation of what you've given them, such as bank statements and texts requesting money, then making a list of all the financial connections you need to cut off, and finally deciding whether or not to speak with them about why you're doing this. I hung up the phone, buzzed with a text from my mother saying, "Your father is very upset, and his blood pressure is through the roof because of your behavior. We need to talk." Something inside of me hardened, and the manipulation continued. They still believed that I would run away the moment they brought up a health issue, but I opened my laptop once more and started taking screenshots of each monthly transfer, after which I started a 12-page document called Family Financial Support for 5 years, and listed every alleged emergency and sacrifice I had made. The truth was unavoidable, and I wasn't just hurt, I was done. The following morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't had in years, and I realized that my path forward was suddenly I told my assistant that I needed a personal day and that it would require all of my attention. I answered the phone when it rang, and 20 minutes later, I heard Jordan Wright say, "Miss Wright, this is Samuel from Vermont Community Bank. I'm returning your call about closing an investment account." "Yes, thank you for getting back to me so quickly." I took a deep breath and decided to close the supplemental retirement account I had set up for Robert and Patricia Wright. "May I ask if there is a problem with the account?" I said that there isn't. It's just a problem with the intended recipients. Samuel helped me through the process after verifying my identity and authority over the account, as I was the only controller of the account. I could close it without my parents' knowledge or approval because it was meant to be a gift. The $42,680 would be returned to my primary account in 3 business days. "Is there anything else I can do for you today, Miss Wright Ashley?" "Yes, I would like to stop all recurring transfers to Robert and Patricia Wright's joint account, set at $3,000 per month, right?" My voice didn't falter like that right away. Step 1 was finished, and then I called my health insurance company. This was more difficult because mid-year changes to dependents required a qualifying life event, and finding out your parents had been defrauding you wasn't on their list. However, after I explained my predicament to a sympathetic Miguel, a representative came up with a solution. He explained that since they live on their own and you no longer provide more than 50% of their income, we can process this as a change in dependent status. He clarified that they were notified that they would be dropped from your policy at the end of the month, giving them 30 days to find other coverage. Thank you for understanding that family situations can be complicated, I said. Miguel said, I've been there myself. The second step was to finish the life insurance policy. A simple online form took my parents off as beneficiaries and replaced them with a local children's charity. By noon, I had methodically dismantled every bit of paperwork. Financial ties to my family, with the exception of my brother Kevin's student loan, which I had been repaying for the previous 3 years and for which he still owed $580 a month for 2 years. This one made me think twice because, although Kevin had taken part in the fraud, he also appeared sincere in his regret. Had our parents put pressure on him, or was he simply sorry he was caught? My phone rang with a text from Dad claims his prescription refill was denied at the pharmacy. What did you do to answer that question? I said, money or consequences are not my problem anymore, but there was no apology or understanding. Kevin, Mom, and Dad are all panicking out. My phone rang Kevin right away, so I put it on voicemail. Rather, I opened my email and wrote a formal letter to my parents, titled simply Financial Support Provided 2018 to 2023, and attached the 12-page paper I had written the previous evening. The email said, a detailed accounting of the financial assistance I have given over the last 5 years is enclosed, Robert and Patricia. The retirement account has been closed, and you have been kicked out of my health insurance policy with effect from May 31st, totaling $221,800. Screenshots of your own messages show how you have repeatedly manipulated and deceived me while making fun of my generosity. Please don't get in touch with me again unless it's to repay. I read it twice, attached the document, and hit send. Step 3 was finished, and I blocked their numbers on my phone, deleted them from my social media accounts, and sat back in my chair, exhausted but relieved that, for the first time in years, my money was actually mine. I was able to enjoy 3 days of blessed silence before they managed to get past my blocks. When the doorbell rang at 8:30 p.m., I was looking over client proposals through the peephole when I noticed my parents and Kevin standing on my porch, their faces displaying a mix of panic and rage. I called Megan instead, saying, "Oh, and at my house," as if they could hear me over the walls. "Do not let them in," she firmly said. If they when the doorbell rang again, my father pounded on Jordan's door and yelled, "We know you're in there. You can't just cut us off without talking to us. Don't leave and call the police for trespassing. That feels extreme, trust me, Jordan. Once they're inside, it will be much harder to get them out physically and emotionally." Kevin and I exchanged a text message. I watched Kevin check his phone, show it to my parents, and then have what seemed to be a heated argument. My mother appeared to be crying, and my father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Eventually, they left, but not before my father yelled, "You're going to regret this, Jordan. We're family, you can't just leave. I have nothing to say, so please leave, or I'll call the police through the peephole. Leave us." My mother wrote a long guilt trip about my father's health deteriorating without his medication, and my father sent a curt message demanding that I stop this. The irony of his using the word abandon wasn't lost on me. They had given up on any pretense of loving me years ago, viewing me only as a resource to exploit. The email began the following morning. "We don't understand why you're punishing us like this. Yes, we made some jokes about poverty." Kevin immediately begged that our parents couldn't afford their mortgage payment without my help. I sent each letter to Megan without answering them, and 3 days later I received a certified letter from my parents that included a handwritten note from my mother, "Jordan. Taste, but that's what families do. Your father's heart medication costs $450 a month without insurance, and we can't pay it off without your help. Our mortgage is due next week, and we risk losing our condo. I almost laughed at the elderly comment that they were both 65 and in good health, but please stop this cruelty and talk to us. According to the country club pictures Kevin had inadvertently included in one of those fateful screenshots, my father's golf game had never been better. I called the pharmacy where my father filled his prescriptions, posing as my mother, and asked about the cost of my husband Robert Wright's heart medication. Without insurance. The pharmacist said, "Let me check," after a moment. When Kevin arrived at my office that evening as I was leaving, he looked awful, with dark circles under his eyes and clothes that rumbled Jordan. He said, "Please, step in front of me. They are falling apart. Dad's talking about bankruptcy. That's not my problem." I tried to move around him, but he said, "How can you be so cold? There are parents, and are they because real parents don't take advantage of their kids? Real parents don't laugh behind their kids' backs about how foolish and naive they are. However, they made mistakes." I interrupted him and said that the mistake was forgetting a birthday, but what they did was cruel and calculated. For years, Kevin, the condo was going into foreclosure because they couldn't make the payments without you. I felt briefly pang of guilt, but then I saw a screenshot that showed Jordan was having trouble paying the rent. In the meantime, we're closing on the lake condo next week, so congratulations. Ben shouldn't have purchased a property they couldn't afford. I said bluntly, "What about Dad's medication? The prescription costs $42, not $450. If he needs to pay for that, he can find work at Walmart." Kevin's eyes widened. He called me when they were discussing moving in with me, and I couldn't handle that, so I turned around. "That sounds like your problem, Kevin. Welcome to the consequences. How did you and I conduct our research? No more lies, Kevin." I walked past him to my car and told them to look into government assistance programs. That's what they're there for. I was sitting in a therapy session I had finally set up for myself. Dr. Bennett, a woman in her 50s with gentle eyes and a straightforward manner, listened as I told her the whole sordid story. I confess that every day I alternate between feeling strong and feeling awful, and that yesterday I learned from a mutual friend that my parents had to cancel their country club membership. I felt bad about it for hours, but Dr. Bennett explained that when you're grieving for the family you believed you had, you're also grieving for the support you provided, but they didn't deserve it and were taking advantage of me. Both of those things can be true at the same time, and you can still feel bad about not giving them support. I thought about that while Dr. Bennett went on, "Bun, you're redefining who you are without the position of family provider, which obviously formed a part of your identity." She was correct. For 5 years, I had equated my value with being the successful daughter who could provide for her parents. Who was I? Now, as I was leaving my session, I got in Jordan, "I just received an odd call from your father asking if he and your mother could live with us for a while. He claimed that you would cut them off financially and that they were going to lose their house, so I answered out of curiosity. It was my Uncle Pete, my father's brother, who lived across the country in Oregon. Uncle Pete, and I thought, your dad has always been good at narrating stories in a certain way. He spoke in a harsh tone and wanted to hear your side of the story, so I explained everything, including the screenshots and the false claims regarding medical bills. After I was done, there was a lengthy pause, which I don't mind because he eventually added, "Your father attempted to pull, he was right. I wouldn't have believed him in his own war or worth. It's because of similar stunts with me years ago that I refused to fund his lifestyle. You know, I felt a wave of betrayal all over again. Why didn't you warn me? They had you convinced that you were their hero and that they were struggling. Sometimes people have to find out for themselves." After we disconnected, I felt oddly validated that I wasn't crazy for cutting them off, that I wasn't a bad daughter, that I wasn't the latest victim of their manipulation, and that I had finally come to my senses. "And I told your father I wouldn't take them in. I suggested they downsize and live within their means." He hung up on me. "Mom and Dad are moving into my spare room next week, and they're selling the condo. Dad is upset about this. I can't believe it's happening." I didn't reply to their text 3 days later, and now there's another one, and a condo is for sale. Dad's car was repossessed yesterday. Things are getting really bad. I nearly texted back, asking if they needed assistance with moving costs, but after that, I recalled a specific screenshot in which Kevin had written, "Jordan just asked if Dad was doing okay," after his doctor's appointment for the heart issue that doesn't exist. They'd made their choices and were now living with the consequences. In week 3, I received an email from an unfamiliar subject line that read, "Message from your parents." It seems that they had a family friend contact them because I had blocked them on all platforms. The email explained that they had to sell the majority of their furniture, that my father's health was failing due to stress, and that they had to apply for food stamps, which my proud father found embarrassing. Finished by saying, "I just wanted a chance to talk to you to explain and apologize." I thought about it for 5 seconds before hitting delete. Their idea of an apology would be whatever they thought might turn the money faucet back on. I was done being manipulated, done being their ATM, and for the first time in years, my money was going toward my future rather than their fictitious emergencies. The guilt was 6 months after cutting off all communication. I came home from a business trip to find my parents sitting on my porch steps. My mother's meticulously manicured highlights had grown out to reveal gray roots, and my father had lost weight. They were both dressed in clothes I didn't recognize, and they looked cheaper than their typical outfits. My first reaction was to turn around and leave, but Dr. Bennett and I had talked about this possibility in therapy, and I felt stronger now, able to confront them without being controlled. I parked in the driveway and arrived slowly, my heart racing, my mother's voice cracking. "What are you doing here, Jordan?" My father added, "We've learned our lesson, and these past months have been hell." My father nodded. "I've lost everything. The condo, the car, our savings, and we had to move in with Kevin, and his place is so small that your mother has to sleep on a pull-out couch and country pants." "All right, you have 5 minutes inside," he said, perched awkwardly on my couch while I stood with my arms crossed. Our membership was withdrawn by the club, and my mother added, "My medication costs have been terrible without your insurance. And all of our friends there no longer call." I listened to them describe everything they had lost while waiting for a genuine apology, but it never arrived. There was no, "We're sorry we hurt you," or "Medicare doesn't cover everything." When they finally fell silent when we wanted to put things right, my mother said, "When we've really suffered, Jordan, we've learned our lesson." What lesson would that be? They exchanged looks, and my father finally said, "Sorry, someone was wrong to mock you with just a catalog of their hardships and implied blame that I had caused them." Translation: They should have been more careful about getting caught, I said quietly. "You haven't learned anything." "What do you mean?" my mother asked, her voice rising slightly. "I know you came all this way to tell me how much you've suffered. Without my money," she said. "At no point have you acknowledged how your betrayal made me feel." I took a deep breath and considered what a healthy family looks like over the past 6 months. It's not treating your child like an ATM and making fun of her behind her back. My mother's face hardened. "So you're just going to keep punishing us over a few jokes?" "This isn't punishment, it's me defending myself against people who've as if." That clarified everything. My father said, "We're your parents, and I'm your daughter, not your personal bank." I moved toward the door and opened it, saying, "I'm kind toward you. I sincerely hope you find a way to live comfortably within your means, but you can't mean that I can no longer be a part of your lives," my mother whispered. "When you need me, that's the problem. You don't need me. You need what I can provide. There's a difference after everything we've done for you." "What specifically have you done for me, Dad, aside from take and take and take?" He had no response as they left the house, so my mother turned back. "I'm sorry, but this Jordan family is all you have left." I shook my head and said, "Oh no, Mom. Family is meant to be the ones who love you without conditions. I've created that family with my friends, and what you gave was merely a deal." I listened to their footsteps retreat as I leaned against the door and closed it. I anticipated experiencing regret or sadness along the way, but instead I felt a profound sense of calm since the ATM was always there. For the first time in my life, closed in my adult life, I was really